Okay, it's Super Bowl weekend. It's the big one. This is what we've been building up all this season. I'm glad to say that my reputation for picking winners took a bit of an upturn last on the championship weekend, and I don't know, but that was it both games I got right. I can't remember. Bill, can you remind me how did I get on in the championship weekend?
I think you went 100% on that one. So really good.
Yeah.
That still doesn't you up to the same point that, in the overall, unless what happens today, this weekend.
Well, this is
But
it.
yeah, Coach, you called it on that. Head and heart, you did it the right way. You went with the head, whereas I just went with my built prejudiced against a certain team. But we'll talk about that a little bit later. But yeah, well done, Coach. Good job. 100%. You got to like that. You feel good about it?
I did. I'm not going to lie. I did. After the week previous, where I had an absolute stinker, it was good to see things go how I saw them. I don't think you were a million miles away in the comments that you'd made either in regards to the games, and I think this has made for, perhaps when you looked at the four teams, perhaps this is the Super Bowl that we needed right now in the current climate. In the season that we've just had, I think this game is probably the one that's going to capture the imagination perhaps more than any other. How do you see that?
Completely. Absolutely. I mean, number one, we're all going to be celebrating the fact we actually got through an entire season. Yep. No matter what, COVID played a big part. Just talk to the Broncos and, their quarterbacks. One game where we didn't even have a quarterback. Everybody got touched by COVID. It affected everyone. And if we look at the Washington football team, specifically in the fact that they didn't even have a GM. Yeah. And the NFL's fined them for having a GM during COVID. But it is what it is. And now we're finally here. We're at the dance. Get to go ahead and head on down to Raymond James. I'm hoping, in the States, what we call this right now? We're hoping that this will be a humdinger of a game. And and that's what fans want. That's what even people who aren't fans, there are names in there that they've heard of. Everybody's heard of, Tom Brady, Gronkowski. Those two names, they're known. And more importantly, everybody knows who Pat Mahomes is. So, I think this is, sometimes you get the Super Bowl that you get, and every now and then you get the Super Bowl that you want.
Yeah, I think you're right.
And I think it's that game. We're going to get the Bowl that we want.
Yeah, absolutely. The only concern is sometimes those games, when you get the game you want, is can they live up to the hype? This game is mega hyped. It's the goat versus the baby goat, however you want to dress it up. It's two teams, as we said, that I think really have captured the imagination in this environment. I think it will. I think this game lives up to the expectation. I'm going early, Coach. I know we like to have a little backwards and forwards, but with just two teams to pick and with a big hunch on which way you're going to lean, I'm going Kansas City. Kansas City win. We'll get to scores at the end of our chat because it was great fun last week to put the scores on as well. Go on then, satisfy my curiosity. Which way are you going? Is this going to be a really boring "how great are the Kansas City Chiefs" conversation, or are you gonna throw some Bucks stats at me?
Oh, come on, Coach. Now you know me too well. Last week, 2 weeks ago, I went with my head, and I called the game, and I said that Kansas would go ahead and win, and they did.
Yep.
And then I went a different way, I really thought Green Bay would have gotten that game, but it is what it is. I mean, my son was very upset, and a few other family members not too happy with Coach Bill and the fact that I didn't go ahead and back the Bucks. But you know what? I've seen the light. My mind has been completely changed, and so I'm going to go with the Bucs. And I'm not doing this because I want to be controversial or I want to let's mix it up between you and me. No, I'm doing this because this is the right thing to do. You know, this is a Tom Brady team that's been built around a strong defense. I mean, you know, everybody talks about all the big names. Do you want to know what the biggest weapon on that entire team is? Coach Bruce Arians. Bruce Arians the guy knows what he's talking about. And the thing is that you know what his nickname was? It was the quarterback whisperer. He was able to go ahead and take some quarterbacks that did not have been in the league and got them to do the right thing. Obviously, he's had some difficult ones, you know, but he gets results. You know, he put in Fitzmagic. You know, Ryan Fitzpatrick, when he was playing for the Bucs, when he was mopping up the messes that poor Jameis Winston had, he was getting it, you know, and that's the thing that I love about it. And I'm going to take the hat off now. More importantly is I think that Bruce Arians, he lives for these kind of games. Big game. You know, that's what he wants to see. And they brought in Brady because Arians said, this will get us a championship. And that's what they're doing. You know, at the beginning of the COVID year, when we were all talking about Brady moving down to Florida, getting ready for retirement, you know, hopping for, you know, where's the best prime time, the early bird special at Denny's meal, all that stuff, buying a golf cart and driving around. Brady was saying, this is it. I'm in a lovely climate. I've got a great team. I've got some real weapons. And I don't have to have Bill Belichick yelling at me all the time, getting angry at me, that big old, you know, beat up old guy with his cut off sleeves. Bruce Arians, who would just, you know, is just perfect for a quarterback, especially a quarterback like Brady.
I've got to say, this is, you know, you're right. This has not been an easy game to call, and you can backwards and forwards on both teams, even if you haven't got such a reason to be anti one of them as some of us have. And you're right, Bruce Arians is a coach I've got a huge amount of admiration for and a huge amount of time for, and some of the things that he's done and the way that he approaches the games. But you know, you can take an awful lot of what you say for Bruce Arians and say exactly the same for Andy Reid. Andy Reid is one of, perhaps, I mean, everyone will talk about other coaches in terms of being one of the greats. You know, Andy Reid certainly deserves to be in the conversation when you talk about great coaches. What he did at Philadelphia, yes, again, it's always going to be held against him that he never got the Eagles over the line. I don't think that was always down to coaching. I think there was other times where they just came up against other good teams and were near. But he has taken this Kansas City team, a team that don't have a huge history in terms of being one of the leading teams, certainly not in the last sort of 20, 30 years. He took that team and he has molded that team. Yes, he got a Patrick Mahomes, and they don't come along very often. But it's more.
No, but the thing is they saw that. He saw that and took a risk and got rid of arguably a deep quarterback to get a better quarterback and to build it around it. And that's a very good point, Coach.
And this team, I mean, this team has been built pre-Mahomes, and I remember seeing them play in London a few years back with Smith behind centre, and they were a good team then. And you could see where this team was moving, and they have continued to do so. And I just think that of the coaches, and it's a tough one for me because they are both great coaches. But if I want one coach leading a team in this Super Bowl that's gonna have the wherewithal to put a plan together, to take away some of the things that we're now going to talk about as we get deeper into these two teams, Andy Reid is the one I want on the sideline.
Well, he does have one more Super Bowl ring than Bruce Arians does.
Yeah.
So you're correct on that. But I think, you know, what I will say about both of these teams is they're strong organizations. They've got a good following. They both have got, I mean, good stadiums. I am finding it hard to word out, Kansas City. But yes, if you look at where Kansas was, several years ago, and they brought in Andy, and Andy Reid made a big difference. He is one of those coaches that players, especially, I would say he's definitely one of those ones where a lot of the O-line guys, the big boys, that's the kind of coach they want. They want someone who's been in the trenches, actually, they know what it's like, from his football days. Aaron's a little bit more swagger, I think, if you're looking for that. But that might just be the fact that he's, living the life over in Tampa. But either way, I think you're going to see two coaches. This is where head coach. This is where they finally coach. No offense to anybody who's got that kind of level, where you basically your OC, and your defensive coordinator are the ones who are making a lot of the calls. This is where you're going to see the head coach actually saying, you know what, this is when things are going to happen. If it came down to a blown play, who would you want as your quarterback? Would you want the legs and the speed and the creativity of a Patrick Mahomes, or would you like that player that's done it several times? Don't look at last game. Brady threw a few interceptions. I don't know why. I think most people are trying to figure that out. But if you look at it on legs, who would you want to go with? Who is it? If it's you right there, Coach, you got two quarterbacks on the line. Who are you going to go with?
Before I go there, that last game, you're right. Brady threw some picks. For me, the game was done at that point, and I think he was looking to put an exclamation point on. And it goes back to something that I said previously. I think when you look at the two QBs, they're obviously both at different ends. And we could spend an inordinate amount of time here just talking about the QB. So let's get away from that, because everybody is talking about the QBs. We'll wrap this point up and then we'll move on, because one is an absolute stonewall certainty Hall of Famer as soon as he can be eligible. The other one is on a path that will put him somewhere close to that. His career has got a long way to go. I think when all is said and done, let's judge him when he's done. But right now, I've said before, I think Brady as quarterback is a coach on the field. He gives you that ability to see, read, and change and adapt as he sees fit. And I think I've always said I think that's invaluable. But I just think that there is something about Mahomes that he can improvise on the fly. He may not, it's almost instinctive. He may not know what he's doing and why he's doing it, but it works. And sometimes in a game that's going to perhaps pan out the way that I think this will, in terms of, it's just going to be a very aerial, it's going to be a high-flying game. These two teams do not run the ball that much or that well. And with the defenses they've got, I think we're going to see a lot of balls flying around the field. I think this plays into the Mahomes. And for me, if you're asking me, who would I take 99.9% of the time, I probably would take a Brady over Mahomes. But in this game, I think Mahomes is just going to have that ability just to do something instinctively, and that's the difference maker as I see it.
But let's, again, I'll bring up this point, and as somebody who's, these O-line guys, you know what they like? They like predictability.
Yep.
They like to know exactly what's going to happen behind them because they can't see.
Yeah.
And if they, if you're going ahead and you're on, you're a left tackle or something, and you're trying to guard, and next thing you know, Mahomes is gone.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know what's going on with that. The one thing I think that I will say, the fact that O-line, what they've got, that sadly, there's a similar thing going on the other side of the ball when we talk about the Bucs. They got Travis Kelce. Travis Kelce, whilst being a great tight end, is a fantastic blocker. If you judge his blocking, The guy really does good reads. He sticks to his position. But even he has said it's difficult when you have as mobile a back as Pat Mahomes, because he will go, and they will have no idea. Yeah. And the thing is, the guy's so fast and so creative, it's going to be difficult. And I think that we saw that with the way that Aaron Rodgers was kind of held back. And then if we even look back, you know, against the Texans, against the Ravens, definitely, you know, the Ravens, very mobile quarterback, but they said, okay, well, let's let him have a couple yards, because the thing is that there's no blocking for him, because O-line doesn't know what he's doing, because he just makes it up as he goes. But I think, you know, it's very hard, because Mahomes is one of those quarterbacks I think that he puts a lot on his shoulders. I think that he wants, you know, he's a competitor, he wants to win. And sometimes when you've got that kind of feeling, it's almost as if you feel you need to make these things happen. And that's when things start getting a little bit crazy. I don't think that Tom Brady has ever said, I'm going to put my life on the line. I'm going to put my body on the line on this 3rd and 15, and I'm going to try to run for it. Whereas I can tell you right now, Mahomes is thinking ESPN's highlight is going to be showing, and you're going to see this one.
Yeah. No, yeah, it's hard, and I've seen this game from both ways. And you know, when we talked about these teams previously, we'll move away. As I said, we could spend all day discussing Brady and Mahomes, and I think,
Coach, before we start talking about the football, can we get to the most important thing,
which is
completely what's your back lineup? So, I mean, are you going chicken wings? Are you looking at crisps and or chips? Yeah. Are you salsa? You know, what kind of snacks have you got on it? Because I mean, the snacks. You know, I don't know about you, but I'm thinking a little bit of sweet, some salty, popcorn. But you've got to you got to pace yourself, because you're not eating that late.
Listen, first and foremost, I've got a challenge that I need to complete. So my starter is by the looks of it going to be fiery haggis, thanks to the winner of the Phoenix Challenge. Listen, it's traditional. I'm either going to be a calzone, or it's going to be burgers, and proper burgers, not sliders. But yeah, you know, a few beers, some. I'm not working Monday, so I'm good to go.
Oh.
So it's a few beers and some definitely there'll be some crisps out, and it'll be let's vegetate on the sofa for a few hours and watch some great football. And what about in the Thompson household? How are you going to go then? Traditional or?
Well, it's got to be wings. So we'll do some hot wings and we'll do some barbecue wings. Got to get out the football helmet, which has the compartments where we can put in our snacks. I do like some Doritos, but not always a good thing to eat just, you know, real late at night, because obviously we're going to be going into the morning the next day. So maybe a little bit of healthy stuff in there. I mean, there might be some celery or something, but grazing food. I always find grazing is the best way.
I'll throw a lettuce leaf in on a burger. I'm with you there. You know, it's you know, got to keep the fear in check. So okay then. So, you know, the snacks aside, go on.
But snacks aside, I mean, the other thing very important about the game for me, you know, because I mean, this is where it all culminates to it. Is you know, I like the music. You know, I'm not a massive Weeknd fan, but I think that'll be good. One of my favorite artists of all time, Eric Church, is doing the national anthem with Jasmine Sullivan. So I had to look that up, but both, you know, that'll be good. I mean, the thing about the game, isn't it? It's more than just the game. It's all the stuff that happens. You know, it's the 3 hours of pregame. You know, and it's you know, I mean, the Philly special. We'll all remember the Philly special. But you know what the most important thing about the Philly special was, everybody said? Was seeing, what's the name of their big supporter? Not Matt, is it Matt McConaughey? or
think
something
so.
was
No,
in
no.
there. You're going to see some stars.
Yeah.
Virtually. I don't think you're going to go ahead and see a lot of stars in the site. But yeah, and you know what else? I just want to, I want to see that. Well, I'm hoping you hear the cannons all game.
Well, listen,
There's something big
I'll
happening.
I'll throw you in. This is going to take us. This is going to take us back to when I first became aware of the sport back in the mid '80s in the UK, and it was just coming over here. It's just getting big. For about the first 10 years of my watching the Super Bowl, because it was the only game that we got live over here. We had highlights on a Sunday night, but it was highlights from the previous week. So we was always kind of a week behind with what was going on in the game. For about the first 10 years, I didn't realize there was all the pre-show, because back in the day, we had VHS and we had a 3-hour tape, and my dad, bless him, would set the timer up to get the crux of the game. We never wanted to miss the end of the game. So we would join the game and watch it from about midway through the second quarter. I didn't have a clue what had gone on before. And so it's great now that we are able to get the whole presentation, to get everything that comes with the Super Bowl, and to see it growing over here and the interest in it rising. And the fact that the BBC are making a big thing of it. I know other broadcasters are available, but it's great to see that is continuing on. And the snacks, some of the bits and pieces that we've talked about are creeping over here. I've been to some great parties. I've been to some fantastic events. I've watched it on my own. I remember watching the I think it was the New York, the Dave Tyree Super Bowl against the Patriots, where I was watching it in a blizzard, and at about 2 o'clock in the morning, had to climb up on the roof to clear the snow off the satellite dish so I could keep watching the game. Thinking I got away with it until the morning after, when my wife looked out of the bedroom window and wondered why there was footprints on the roof. It's a game that captures the imagination, and it's, as you said earlier, it's great that it's happening. So now let's delve into it a little bit. We'll try and avoid using the Brady and Mahomes. We'll try and keep them out of the equation. We've discussed them. There are far more points to this game. The last point, before we do move on, these two teams have played before this season. They met in week 12. The Kansas City Chiefs won that game, and they won it by 27 points to 24. Go back to some of the things that we've said. The key for me, the two stats that leap out: Mahomes threw for 462 yards, 269 of which went to Tyreek Hill. Brady, 345 yards, 106 of those to Rob Gronkowski. We've said this is going to be an aerial battle. Without bringing the quarterbacks into the equation, how are the secondaries going to stop these two offenses producing those kind of numbers in the Super Bowl in a warm climate, everything going for it? How is that going to be? How is that going to happen?
Well, you're going to go see. You're going to see a lot of blitzes. Number one, you're going to see blitzes coming in. I think that you're probably going to also remember this: they're not going to stop them. There's too many weapons. You got, let's throw the quarterbacks out, but we got guys who can get the ball done and get it down the field. So I think where you're going to see some containment, and you're also going to see a lot of tackles, compression tackles, where you've got more than just one guy coming in. Going to be a lot of trying to loosen the ball. Turnovers are going to be the biggest thing in this game. Brady is going to, or Tampa's quarterback, is going to be hurried, and they're going to try to make him make mistakes. Likewise, you're going to see some serious action from the linebackers against Mahomes. That's where that I think is going to be where you're going to get it. You can't give them time. Can't give them time at all. You want to go ahead and see them moving. What you want to see is that they're dumping the ball off to their third or fourth receiver, or they're throwing it to Fournette or one of the running backs. What I'm really worried about is it's going to be those hard yards that you're going to see coming from both tight ends. both tight end positions. Because let's be honest, I don't think Gronkowski's going to have the same kind of game that he had last time. And, Kelsey's, arguably the best tight end there is in the league right now. It's going to be difficult, but not impossible. All right. Number one, if you go ahead and look the linebackers, Shaq Barrett, sack monster. Guy's going to end up going ahead and getting in there. He's going to make a difference. You don't have that on Kansas City. Kansas's defense is okay. They're strong, but that secondary does have its holes. They play a zone a lot of the times, and that's probably their biggest Achilles heel. But the thing is that they don't build that team around their defense. They build their team. They basically go, we're going to just score. You can score against us, but we're going to score more. I think what will be really, really interesting for me is seeing what happens when you spread out that secondary. Is it going to give the chances for the tight ends to go ahead and play much more of a big part in the game, especially for the Gronkies of the game?
Mm-hmm.
Secondly, are you going to go ahead and start seeing a little less movement on the ball and a little bit more real quick little slant passes, maybe even dump the ball off? And you might actually see a potential run game. Because the thing is that both these quarterbacks do well when it's 1st and 10. Brady doesn't do well when it's 3 and 3. He's fine with that. He'll run it. Brady won't. Brady will look towards his tight ends. He'll look for the short yards. And that's going to be the interest. But the main thing is that when you say, how does the secondary stop the ball, stop those big bombs coming through? They don't. They can't. Because they're not enough right now.
Here's where I see, and for again, backwards and forwards. I'm going to throw a key player in, and the key player for me on the defense of the Kansas City Chiefs, Tyrann Mathieu. And you got to remember, Tyrann Mathieu was drafted by Bruce Arians. Nobody wanted to touch him at the time. But I think the Honey Badger is going to be the key. If he can, as you say, there's not the same pressure potential from the Chiefs front four as there is from the 3-4 defense and the way that the Bucs have been using that, certainly in the last few weeks. But I think if they can get some pressure and Matthew can get in amongst some of those receivers, and you got to be looking Godwin, Brown, Evans. That's a dangerous trio. And it'd be interesting to see how they line Matthew up, who he's going against, and how they're shuffling around. I see him going up against Brown a lot, and Brady has been targeting Brown a lot in the last few weeks. I think Matthew's the key. I think if Matthew can disrupt things, if he can get a pick early in the game, I think that puts that doubt in Brady's mind. And as you say, if you do that, then you can get to them. I don't necessarily listen. The Bucs defense has been superb in the last 2 weeks, and certainly they were absolutely outstanding against the Packers and did what they needed to do. Again, Matthew, I think, is the key on that Kansas City, and I think if there's any player that is primed to want to say, hey, look, if we're going to look anywhere for an MVP in this game, and it's not coming from the two names that we're not mentioning, I'm going to put him forward as someone who's going to be looking to put himself somehow, some way in that discussion.
Mm. Well, I mean, it's interesting you talk about that and MVPs, and Honey Badger's got it. I mean, yeah, he's phenomenal to watch. The problem is that he is the only real disruptor within that team. And that's where I see that they're able to go ahead and shut him down. And there are 4 reasons. And you named 3 of them already. I'm going to throw another one with Scotty Miller. All right. That is one of because Brady targets, but he does make sure that he shares the ball out. I mean, who in the world would name a quarterback that would have a receiver, a 9-yard perfect pass to Chris Godwin and he drops it. You know, I mean, you do that, not in the NFL. You know, and we all know what NFL stands for. It's not for long. And I'm sure that's the first thing that Brady thought was, this guy, what are you telling me? And then right back to him the very next play and hits him for 55.
Yeah.
You know, I think I'll tell you what I think for me, what I am concerned about is that tight end game, because I think that you're going to see, you know, Kelsey's going to have a great. I think Kelsey will probably be. I wouldn't even be surprised if he's up there for the MVP, not for the league, for the game. Obviously, to be named the MVP, somebody's got to get in the ball, and that's probably where, you know, that's where the public looks. But there's going to be some shock on my side. I think that Scotty Miller is going to be the big difference in that game, and I wouldn't even be surprised if Leonard Fournette turns it on. You know, we haven't really talked about the whole Ronald Jones and Leonard Fournette story, but Fournette actually put a pretty good run in, you know, and he was definitely the ball around against the Pack.
Yeah.
So we'll be interested to see whether or not anything changes on that.
We picked up on that in that discussion around that game when we said the Pack were vulnerable. And I think, you know, seeing Fournette and Joe do that, Rojo do that, showed that we were on the money there, that the Pack were vulnerable. I don't see that same vulnerability so much in the front of the Chiefs. I don't know. Look, I hear what you say, and I think both teams. You look at the receiving core, and you take Watkins is still questionable. I don't expect him to play. That leaves you with Hill, Hardman, and probably stepping up. Pringle maybe. Or it's hard to know, but the way that Holmes uses Kelsey, you know, you say a fantastic blocker. We've spoken before. Most teams, including the Bucs, will look to have some form of run game going to open up the tight end, to get the tight end down. The Chiefs don't use Kelsey in the same way. They will happily run him as a receiver, and I think again, this is where I see the difficulty in that Bucs defense in being able to take away a weapon. And we, you know, other teams have always talked about the way that they approach playing. They'll take away a weapon. You know, you can see Hardman running jet sweeps. You can see reverses to Hill. You can see Mahomes just suddenly taking off. And I think there's too much going on for the pressure that they will bring, and they will bring it. I'm with you there. I think watching Pierre-Paul and Barrett run all over the Pack last week showed you this is a front seven, the way they play that 3-4, that can get pressure. I don't think Mahomes is as vulnerable to that as Rodgers turned out to be. And again, you've identified him. For me, that the key player there is Kelsey. And I agree with you. I think this could be a game in which the MVP, well, and it's a constant source of irritation for me that the MVP is usually the winning quarterback, because generally speaking, there are so many other players on that team that have allowed that quarterback to get those numbers or to make that performance. You understand why it goes the way it does. But I can see a 100-yard, two touchdown game for Kelsey quite easily in this one. And again, we could spend the rest of the afternoon batting this one backwards and forwards. We both made our calls. I'm going Kansas City Chiefs 34, and I think Tampa Bay Buccaneers scored 27. Kelsey 100 yards, 2 touchdowns, MVP. There's my call. It's a big one, I know. What you got for me, Coach?
Well, I'm not gonna. I mean, I love you, Coach, and I'm not gonna. Number one, I'm definitely not gonna go with yards or anything like that, because, you know, we got to be careful about this, because remember, there is a challenge that's going on right now with the Phoenix family trying to guess who's gonna, you know, who gets first blood, what's the score at halftime, who wins the game, and sad. the winner gets to choose a forfeit for the coach. Some coach. Doesn't have to be you or me. There's lots of coaches within the Phoenix family. We all know that. You know, first and foremost, who's the winner? Well, football. And I know that's a cliche, but it is.
You're
We
right.
got to see. If you really want to know who the winner is, well, it was Alfonso won in our league. How he did that and Stu didn't win, I have no idea. But, you know, I think you got to look at that game the last time they played. They played Chiefs away. Oh, gosh, I said the name. I can't believe I said the name. I promised you I wouldn't. And, yeah, you know, they had some things. But one thing that was missing from that game was Shaq Barrett. Shaq Barrett was ill at that time. That's just before he ended up contracting long COVID. Will that make a difference? Don't know. The main thing is that, you know, Tariq, rushing yards, there was none. And, Coach, do you remember what the was? It was 27-24. 27-24.
Yep.
Okay. And 17 points were scored in the first quarter by the Chiefs. Do you want to know how many points were scored in the fourth? Nothing from the Chiefs and 14 points from the Bucs. And actually, the Bucs were close to winning that game.
Mm-hmm.
And that's because they started going ahead and, one, they ran the ball. Jones ended up getting more. And more importantly, they started off 6 receptions to Gronkowski. All of those came after the half. I'm still comfortable with saying that the Bucs are going to win on. You want to know who the MVP for that game is going to be? The guy that's got 6 rings and is going for a 7th. Tom Brady is going to go ahead the mic like you would not believe on this one. You know, and if he walks away from football after that, he has nothing else to prove. But he's an editor and he won't walk away. You know, because who has 7? No one has 7.
No.
Who has 8? No one has 8.
And
so he's still going to be in there.
That leads us brilliantly into what we're going to be. We said we're going to continue these discussions, these little conversations. We're going to continue them in the off season. Next week we'll get together and we'll delve into what went on and we'll see how we did in what we've been talking about. But next week I would love to sit with you and have a conversation around 5 it would have been 5 QBs. It's now down to 4. We're going to talk Brady, we're going to talk Rodgers, and we're also going to talk about their future. And they're not the only ones. You've got Roethlisberger that you can add into the mix. We would have discussed Phillip Rivers as well. And we're going to look at some of these quarterbacks and say, will they come back or not? Breeze has sort of made differing noises. Again, as you said, Rivers has made his announcement, which his statement, which was the actual statement was only 2 lines long, but when he thanked his kids, it ended up into a small novel. We'll have a conversation.
A lot of kids.
A lot of kids. I don't know. A lot of injuries or too much time on his hands, but a lot of kids. We'll have a chat next week and see what we think. I'm with you. I'm not sure this is the end for number 12 either. What's going to motivate him to come back? We'll get there and we'll talk about that next week. Again, put a score for me. Indulge me. You've given your thoughts. Put your score on.
Well, I'm gonna. You know what? Just for fun, I'm gonna say it's going to be 24-27, which is almost the reverse of the last time that these two teams played each other. And I'm even going to go ahead and say that Ryan Suckup ends up going ahead and gets a nice kick, which is going to make the thing. The main thing is the Broncos are not going to be in the Super Bowl. And that's the hardest part for me. All right, I'll just say it now. Coach Alistair, I'm feeling it for you too, buddy, but you know what? We'll be there next year.
Well, listen, that doesn't come as a huge surprise. Suckup's been your go-to for the last 3 rounds. It's an interesting one.
Kickers We're at the
Underrated.
beginning of the season. At the beginning of the season, kickers were missing the ball left, right, and center.
And I tell you now,
you had us. It really. I mean, if you know that you can. I mean, what 60-yard field goals being kicked this year? But if you know that 4 yards out, that you can walk away with 3 points.
Yeah.
No one, other than a few of us, everybody cares about. They don't score. It's the W or the L.
Yeah.
That's it.
And
if you win by 1 point or if you win by 27 points, doesn't matter. Kicker's very invaluable, and both of these guys have got decent kickers.
And
but Ryan Suckler.
Boring coaching factoid for you. My very first American football playing position at the age of 16, kicker.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, are you kidding?
Listen, it's been fantastic to talk to you. Enjoy the game on Sunday. I absolutely, you said it earlier, this is going to be a great game. Thanks, everyone, for listening to our thoughts. Let us know what you think. Like, share, and subscribe to Phoenix TV. We're going to be looking at developing a lot more content this year, getting the kids involved to do more. Coach and I will continue to have discussions throughout the off season as we move forward. But it's been an honour. This last few weeks has been an absolute joy, and it's making me already look forward to next season to see where we can take this, because we're competitive, but we enjoy the game, and as I say, enjoy the game on Sunday, Coach, and I'll speak to you again soon.
All right, Coach. Thanks very much. All right. Let's get the game on. Come on. Let's go.